Our beavers are really starting to thrive now. They can pretty much sustain themselves with the sheer abundance of food and water that they collect and store. And they are also gradually expanding out their technologies so that they can advance even further. The one major thing holding them back at the moment is their power needs. The compacted water wheels that we have set up do work perfectly whenever the water continues to flow down the river. However, once that drought hits and that water stops flowing, our beaver colony loses all of its power, and we are pretty much just sat at a standstill until the drought is over. Until today, that is. Because our clever little beavers have a secret technology that they can unlock, which is the engine. And this will allow us to burn fuel in order to create power, and that fuel is just simply some logs. And in order to create the engine, we're going to require 20 logs, 25 gears, and 20 iron ingots, which the logs and gears won't be an issue for us, so it's just the metal ingots that we need to worry about, which I reckon won't be too much of a difficulty. We'll need to unlock the scavenger flag in order to collect the metal scraps, as well as the smelter building to actually make the ingots for us. Eventually we can save up some science points and we can unlock the efficient mine, but this is going to require a few different parts that we aren't yet making before we can get it. So to begin with, we'll unlock our scavenger flag as well as our smelter build, and we'll set these smelters down on top of the new large warehouses that we have built, and our scavenger flags just there, which reach should go over to these ruined cities here. To make our smelter builds, we are going to require 50 planks, 20 gears, and 30 of those scrap metals. But that's our beavers just completed our scavenger flag, so once we get in some workers, then we'll be able to actually start gathering up some of those metal scraps. But unfortunately, we don't have any unemployed beavers at the moment, so we will just need to wait on some beavers growing up and taking those jobs. In the meantime though, I think it's about time that we do move away from just carrots and berries that we're living off of and maybe move up to something a bit more fulfilling, which we're going to start off by planting some wheat, and eventually we'll turn that wheat into flour and then into bread. And we have an aquatic farmhouse that we can place down that will allow us to plant and harvest aquatic crops, which I'm going to place down about here. And then I'll place down some stairs into this area here, which we will get a few water dumps up just to flood it with water. And then we'll plant some cattail alongside some spadderdock inside it. And once our beavers harvest those crops, then that's just going to be some more food for us as well. The river unfortunately dried up last night, which is a bit problematic, as we still have 3 days left of the drought. But our carrots are drying out and will die in a lot less time than that. So I'm wondering if we place down another one of our water dump levee setups, will that be able to hydrate the land down here just to keep our carrots alive even during a drought? I'm not really sure what's going to happen to this setup whenever the water returns, but there's only real one way for us to find that out. And whilst we were doing all of that, I had seen that some beavers had become our scavengers for us, so we'll soon start getting in some metal scraps. That's the drought now ended, and as expected, uneventful and 0 casualties. Well, 0 casualties if we exclude our dead carrots. But that's the water returning again, and our water wheels are back up and operational, so our industry builds will now also be powered again. And with our beavers now back making components for us, as well as our scavenger beavers collecting metal scraps, we will soon get our new smelters up and running as well. I have noticed that our population is very much like a yo-yo, where the number is going up and down at the moment. We are getting a lot of new beavers born, but at the same time we are having a lot of older beavers dying of old age. So what I'm going to do in order to combat that is to place in some more housing and then have them build a lot more breeding pods, which should allow us to increase our population a lot more. That will mean though that we will definitely need to upgrade our food source, because as our population starts to soar, I fear that our food may start to become a lot more scarce. So we'll unlock the bakery and gristmill buildings, and that will let us turn our newly planted crops into flour and then into some new tasty food for our beavers. We now have the 2 large warehouse foundations constructed for our smelter build to be built on top. So we'll set the smelter to the highest construction priority so that they pick up that order next, which they should do just after they finish their little population project over here. Speaking of projects, that's our new water dump and levee setup for our aquatic crops now complete, and they're just finishing off the new farmhouses for them. So in preparation for us getting some workers into these builds, I think we'll plant some cattail crops as well as some spadderdock crops. We've now managed to convince some beavers to come work over in these new builds, so the second we get some water into our water dump, then we can begin the process of planting the new crops, which I think this little beaver here is just about to bring some water over to the dump. So the water dump has hydrated a lot of the land around as expected, but we can't yet grow the new crops until the farm area has become flooded. And that's where our double floodgate comes into play. So if I lower the height of the floodgate right down to 0, the water will now start to spill out, flooding the surrounding farmlands. And our aquatic beavers have then come down and started planting some of the new crops for us. So we'll basically just monitor how much water comes from the dump for now, just to ensure that we don't overflood this area. And finally, I have seen that our beavers have made a start on the smelter. So we're now starting to get some materials into it, and very shortly we'll have it up and constructed. And we'll definitely have the workforce to go towards our new builds, because we've just tiptoed over 100 beavers in our population, with even more being born every few moments. There's the familiar tick of another drought incoming, so I am interested to see if our little water experiment further up the river will work whenever it does hit, as I really hope it will keep this area nice and hydrated during it to ensure our carrots remain nice and safe. They are the main priority of this colony, of course. How is our new smelter build looking? We've nearly got everything required for it, so it really isn't going to take that much longer until it's ready. And actually, that was nice and quick. So there's our first new smelter up for us. So I think it's definitely time that we come down and unlock our engine technology, which is an interesting looking build, and I think we will place it down here, just at the back of our industry builds. And once the smelters start producing the metal ingots for us, then we can start constructing these new engines, and hopefully that will solve all of our power issues. Whether or not our smelters can create the 20 metal ingots before the drought hits within the next 1.5 days time, we'll just need to wait and see, because otherwise this is going to be a very long drought without any real power and any real progress being made. There's less than a day now before the drought hits, and the smelter is working to 100% efficiency, pretty much full time at the moment, so we will see. We are starting to get some of the metal ingots placed into our storage, which I hope our beavers will take out and start constructing our engine with them. Which, to be fair, they do seem to be doing a good job of that. Although unfortunately, just that little bit too late. Okay, well, I'll see you guys very shortly. I'm just going to skip ahead through this drought so we can get back to making some more progress. And that's the drought now over, and you guessed it, absolutely nothing happened. The riverbed did dry up, but our little water dump experiment was a success and kept this area around it nice and hydrated, which of course meant that our precious carrots remained hydrated and alive. So we're going to build a few more of these setups along the riverbed just to keep more of the lands around it hydrated as well whenever the drought does dry up the river. The water is slowly starting to flow back now, which means our water wheels are about to start turning again, which ultimately means some initial power to get these builds going again. What an absolutely beautiful sight. Our aquatic crops have been blooming over the time, and the farmers are out here currently harvesting them. We have some land around here that isn't yet flooded, so I'm going to try another water dump setup just to see if we can have the water flood reach it. Well, that's the water dump now primed with water, and I don't think it's escaping yet. So let's decrease the height of this and watch the water flow down, and hopefully it will flood it just a bit more. Which I believe it has worked, as we now have part of the farmland here flooded and our farmers out planting on it. So I'd say overall that has been pretty successful. Unfortunately, I just missed it, but that's our first engine now up and running. It's taking in the logs that our beavers delivered to it and converting them into fuel, which in turn then creates some raw power for us. 400 horsepower to be precise, which is definitely going to be a nice boost for all of our builds here, especially whenever we get the rest of the engines up here as well. So now we have 2 dedicated power sources for our builds. We have the water wheels, which will continue to work so long as we don't have a drought. And we have our new engines, which will run indefinitely, so long as they always have logs as a fuel source. Which, seeing as about 80% of our land is covered in different trees, I don't think we're going to run out of them anytime soon. So now all we really need to do is start processing some of the new crops that we're growing into some actual food, and then start weaning our beavers away from the luxury of tasty carrots and berries that they've been used to. But I'm thinking for today we'll just concentrate on getting the remaining builds up and running for us, so we can actually get our new power sources properly established. Although whenever I see our collected resources up here, we are starting to stock a lot of wheat. So until we do get up a more permanent food processing build, I think I'm just going to place in some temporary ones just to help with that stock, such as this bakery build as well as a grist mill. Which, to be fair, we will end up with a setup similar to this, just once power has been completely rectified. And I think this little beaver here is bringing over the final component required for this engine build, which yes he did. So we now have 2 engines up and working for us. The only thing I would comment on is that our lumber mills are doing a fantastic job at creating planks for us, but our gear production certainly could be beefed up a bit more, I think, because it's really just those that are holding things up here. Although, even with me saying that, they've just finished another smelter build as well as our 3rd engine. Just unfortunately, without the smelter build in front of it, our engine isn't yet hooked up to the rest of our builds. The total network supply of the power at the moment is close to 2,200 horsepower. So the water wheels are still definitely producing a significant amount of that power, although it does vary with the water flow. But with our engines generating a flat 400 horsepower each, then after a few more of them, they will definitely have us covered here. And here comes the next drought, so it's time to put our new power supplies to the test. We have lost a fair chunk of our overall network power, but we still have enough of an income here to allow our builds to run at 75% efficiency, and that's with all of our water wheels coming to a complete stop, as well as one of our engine builds which isn't yet fully connected. But because we do still have power going into these builds, our beavers were able to make the components required to build our 3rd smelter, which now that we have our 3 engines combined, we are getting out a nice steady 1,200 horsepower supply, so our builds are now 90% efficient. And everything is just going to continue to run whether we have a drought or not. So I would definitely say that this has been a very, very productive and a successful day. Our beavers are really starting to become a lot more self-sufficient and are really starting to thrive. But most importantly, so are our carrots.